Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of LoopStudio Talks. Today, I have Daniel Blanc with me. Dan has been for part of LoopStudio team while now, and he leads the data team. Everything we do around data engineering. I want to bring him because honestly, data is the conversation we are having more and more with clients, and it's something that goes around events and everything. And I think it's worth unpacking what we that actually means in practice. Dan, why don't you start to tell people what do you do day to day?
Hey Edu. Yeah, so my goal here is to be part of the leadership team um, in technology at LoopStudio. My role is mainly focused on growing the business around data projects and working closely with clients on data-related initiatives, from the proposal until some advisory. At the same time, I'm also involved in supporting and mentoring our data engineering team, our growing data engineering team. And that includes helping develop our internal capabilities, defining the practices, and making sure that we are delivering high quality solutions that align both business need, but also technical execution.
That's a lot. And that's a lot more when we know that a lot of companies manage a lot of data and they don't know what to do with everything. What is the main problem? How does a company usually end up talking to you? Like, what's the thing that happened right before they reach out?
Well, companies usually reach out when they start losing visibility into their own business. In the early stage, things are simple. A company might be just buying and selling, and decisions are being made relatively straightforward. But when the company grows, everything becomes more complex. There are customers, internal processes, financial operations. So, how can you take control of all of that? That's data. Data start to spread across multiple tools and systems that you use, and suddenly it becomes too difficult to understand what's it's actually going on. That's typically the moment when they realize that they need a data project.
That's incredible because everyone's trying to keep control of everything. So data is part of that. When you start digging into how they have things set up, what do you typically find?
Well, most companies do not come saying, hey, we have a data problem. They usually come with a specific goal. For example, we need to build a machine learning model, or we need to start making decisions using information, that kind of stuff. But usually, when we start analyzing their data ecosystem, we often find that it's highly fragmented. Different systems, like for HR, CRM, ARP, are not connected, and they are meant for different things. So there is not a single place when you can get your source of truth. The main gap is usually in data consolidation and integration. So what usually happens is that before trying to reach their goal, we need to help them to understand the steps required to build a solid data foundation, because without that, everything is difficult.
Okay. That they realize that they so is there a point where it is too early to invest in this? How do you know when a company is actually ready?
Well, it's never a bad idea to start digitalizing your processes and collecting structured data from day one. It gives a company a huge advantage in the long run. However, in early stage, company often needs to prioritize growth and profitability first. That's understandable. The key moments comes when intuition is no longer enough to make decisions. Company that invested early in data can scale much faster at that point, while others need to slow down and build that foundation. So in terms of reducing that time or of building your data foundation, if you start collecting data at any early stage, it's going to be better.
Fantastic. So people start to work on over your data. It could be late, very early. You have worked with companies that they are kind of at the tipping points. They are growing, data is becoming a real problem, but they have made the leap yet. What does that stage look like, and what do you usually get them to move?
Well, at that stage, company usually have strong silos, like places when each team has its own systems and processes and they operate quite independently. And they are probably very good at it because that's why the company grows. The challenge is not technical, usually. There are a bunch of tools available. The real change is organizational. Success depends on getting teams to collaborate and align around a shared understanding of the business. So once teams start seeing the value of working together, that's when data projects really move forward and generate impact. So I would say that data projects are also like not so much technical at the end of the day, but also have a lot of soft skill requirements and organization.
Great, great. It's not only working over the data, it's everything around that. Take me through the beginning of a project. Where you did, where you touch anything technical, what are you figuring out?
Well, at the beginning of the project, we mainly focus on understanding the client goal in the context of their business. It's like, why are you trying to get into this specific position and why that is important to you? We want to know how this initiative actually impact their operations and decision making. At the same time, we assess the maturity of their data, the quality, the availability, the structure. A big part of our role is helping them understand what's actually possible. In many cases, the final project is not exactly what they asked for, but is a more realistic and sometimes even more valuable solution based on the current data. That means data projects are business projects. Data is entirely related with the business. And to have a successful data project, you need to become an expertise in the business of your client.
Related to that, and around everything is like there are a lot of tools in the space, and so Snowflake, DBT, Airflow, Fivetran. How do you decide what to use? Is there an obvious answers, or does it depend on the project? How do you take decision over that?
There is actually no one size fits all answer. It always depends on the clients. For companies starting from scratch, imagine a company that says, hey, I don't have anything with data, no data tool at all. Well, at LoopStudio, we are very fan of the start of Snowflake connected with DBT and Airflow. Usually it's a strong option because those products and technology are very robust, very consistent, and they live with each other very well, very smoothly. But then if they rely, for example, on common sense tools like Salesforce, QuickBooks, something like that, there are products like Fivetran or Airbright that can simplify that ingestion. So instead of creating a pipeline on my own, I can use those tools and are very cheap. They do the work for me. So kind of depends on what they use. But on the other hand, if they need like custom systems or need real-time processes, the complexity increases. In most cases, though, especially early on, simple and scalable solutions are the best choice. An existing cloud infrastructure can also influence the decision. For example, if your company have everything in AWS, well, I'm going to consider Redshift for your data warehouse, not going strictly into Snowflake. So that kind of stuff also happens.
Fantastic, fantastic. That's one of the main questions for sure. People around, and maybe someone listening this is gonna take care of that. What's something that looks simpler from the outside, but it's all actually a lot harder than people expect?
Well, I think that every data engineer is going to answer the same. Data consolidation is the hardest part of any data project. The same entity, I don't know, a customer, an employee, a transaction, an object, can live in different systems, but each system defines that in a different way. And the system, when you're reading the data from, was not built for you, was built for achieving a specific request or a product. But not for a data engineer to read the data. So we usually need to struggle a lot with that kind of information. And also, these systems were never designed to work together. So unify them is a major challenge. Companies really tend to underestimate this step, thinking that the hard part is the actual analysis. I don't know, building a machine learning model, creating a dashboard. That's hard. That's also takes time, but if the data is not clean and unified, that becomes impossible. And it's usually the most difficult part.
Now, if we're living a time under technology, talking everyone about AI, and for sure, data and AI will go around something deep, and it's not like trivial and easy to say, okay, now with AI, data is solved. Everyone is trying to do something with AI right now. What happens when a company wants to move in that directly, but their data is all over the place?
Well, there is a concept that I strongly agree with, that is data quality. Now it's AI readiness. AI is only as good as the data behind it. So actually, the steps haven't really changed. You still need to centralize your data, generate an adequate data model, and ensure it's clean, validated, and well documented. Even if you are planning to build a dashboard or an AI agent, you need to have those steps. So it's only in that stage when AI can deliver real value. This applies both to structured data like tables and databases, but unstructured data as well. That would be like the new field that AI is adding. And that implies documenting messages and stuff. But also that needs to be clean as well and with quality. AI is not the starting point in a data project. It's the layer on top of a solid data foundation.
That's incredible because it's a topic that everyone is talking. So, has AI changed how you work? Like, as a data engineer, is your day to day different now than it was 2 years ago? How AI improved your schedule?
Well, yeah, certainly. I love it. Especially in terms of speed, has changed a lot of my work. Building data pipelines used to be one of the most time consuming parts of the job. Now, with AI, you can generate a very solid first version much faster, including best practices like validations and indemnity. This reduces the need for write repetitive code and allow engineers to focus on defining what actually matters for the business. It also frees us from think about architecture, infrastructure, and design, which are critical in terms of data engineering, since we are always working with multiple interconnected systems. In data engineering, the infrastructure and the design are super important. And anytime that we can be away from the code and thinking in those things along with the business rules is much more important than just writing code. So from my view, AI has changed our workflow for good.
Fantastic. And is there a model of AI that you are working more with the data, or do you have some preferences around that?
Well, I started working with Cursor because it was very handy to use it on the editor. But now I'm working with Claude, and honestly, it's incredible how it speed up, and using the context just provide a much robust solution. What happens with a lot of people in data is that we come from different fields. For example, in my case, I came from social science. So I am not an engineer as I don't have a bachelor in engineering, I have in social science. So in terms of programming skills, it's great for me to being able to rely in an AI agent. I know there are a lot of other stuff that needs to be taken in consideration. Certainly security, architecture design, process of development. But in terms of writing the code with a solid architecture, it's great for me that any of those tools are super effective.
That's fantastic and really helpful. Dan, if someone is watching this and they are not sure if they need this yet, for sure they need after I listen to your answer, but what's the one question they should be honest with themselves about?
So if you're watching this and you have a company and you're having success, you need to ask yourself, are you making decisions based on information or intuition? If the answer is intuition, the next step is to ask whether you are collecting the right data. If you are not, if you are, but you're not using it, then you need a data project. If you're not collecting your data, then you should start immediately to digitalize your processes. The goal is not to replace every decision, but it's to improve the most important one. The more decisions that you can support with data and information, the more time you get to free up for strategic thinking instead of relying purely on individual experience.
That's a really good one because most of the time, if you have the data, you will take better decisions. In the past years, we have been working with our internal data team trying to solve internally good things to work better. And I think that that's really helpful because it gives you a line to make smarter decisions.
Absolutely. There are a lot of decisions that you still need to do related on things that data can solve for you. But the key is whatever data can solve to you, let that handle it. So you can focus on things that only you can solve.
Yes. Yes. And you will work with with real information. And that's key. Love it, Dan. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all this information. This was a really good one. If anyone wants to dig more about data and if they are collecting or not their data, contact us. You have our emails. You can also reach out Dan on LinkedIn. Thanks a lot again, Dan. And see you next episode.
Thank you, Edo. It was great.